Love is Blind. Season 10 isn't even fully finished yet, but the next chapter may already be taking shape. And if the early clues are right, Season 11 could change the entire conversation around this franchise. More on that in a moment. Because the biggest hint about the future of Love is Blind may already be hiding in plain sight. But before we get into the next city, the next cast, and the timeline that producers don't usually talk about, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Because we're following every twist of Season 10, every behind-the-scenes reveal, and every clue about what comes next. And the next season may already be closer than people realize. Now here's what's interesting. Netflix hasn't officially announced Love is Blind Season 11. Not yet, but that doesn't mean it isn't happening. In fact, the opposite might be true. Because production on this show doesn't work the way most people assume. Unlike many reality series that film one season at a time, Love is Blind often films multiple seasons in advance, then releases them gradually across the year, which means by the time audiences are debating the latest breakups, the next season may already be filmed, or at least deep into production. And that's where the first major clue appears: Boston. According to early casting material that surfaced online, the show appears to have filmed, or at least prepared to film, a season in Boston. Pasted text. And if you look at the timeline, it starts to make sense. Casting flyers for Boston reportedly appeared back in July 2024. At exactly the same time, the show was recruiting singles in Ohio. Ohio eventually became the setting for Season 10, which just aired. So if the production pipeline followed the same order, Boston could logically be next. And that would make Season 11 a Boston season. Now, why does the city matter so much? Because location shapes everything. The dating culture, the personality types, the social expectations around marriage. Think about the seasons we've already seen. Atlanta had a very different energy from Seattle. Chicago had a different dynamic from Dallas. And Ohio has already proven to be one of the more emotionally intense seasons. Boston would introduce a completely different environment. Older urban professionals, highly educated singles, a strong East Coast culture, and historically, Boston dating culture tends to produce very strong personalities, which could mean more confrontation, more intellectual debates, and possibly some of the most complex pod conversations we've seen yet. But Boston isn't the only thing happening behind the scenes, because the casting pipeline for Love is Blind is expanding. And this is where things get really interesting. Casting calls have reportedly been posted for multiple new cities: Philadelphia, Austin, St. Louis, New Orleans, Charleston. That's 5 potential future locations, 5 different dating cultures, 5 different casting pools, which suggests Netflix isn't slowing this franchise down. If anything, they're scaling it up, and that makes sense. Love is Blind has quietly become one of Netflix's most valuable reality properties, not just because of ratings, but because of how often people talk about it. Every season generates debates, memes, breakup analysis, psychology discussions, even relationship advice. The show doesn't just air, it circulates. And that circulation keeps the algorithm alive, which is why the franchise has already expanded internationally. Brazil, Japan, Sweden, the UK, each version exploring the same question in a different cultural context. But the American series remains the flagship, the one that drives the biggest online conversation. So the idea that Netflix would stop after Season 10? Extremely unlikely, especially when the show releases multiple seasons per year. That schedule matters, because it means audiences rarely have time to forget about the show. One season ends, another begins, and suddenly the next group of singles are walking into the pods. Now here's the timeline question everyone wants answered. When will Season 11 actually premiere? Right now, nothing official has been confirmed, but if we follow the established release pattern, fall looks likely. Historically, Love is Blind tends to drop new seasons roughly twice a year, which means the gap between Season 10 and Season 11 may not be long. In fact, the next cast might already be preparing for the moment the pods open. And remember something important: casting happens months before filming. Filming happens months before release. Editing takes time, promotion takes time, which means if Boston really is next, those relationships may already exist. Some couples may already be married. Some may already be divorced before viewers even meet them. That's the strange time warp of reality television. The emotional journey feels live, but it's actually history. And sometimes the most dramatic twists happened months earlier. Another interesting detail? The official casting portal for Love is Blind is currently closed, which usually signals one thing: production has enough applicants for the next phase. Either filming is already underway, or the next cast has already been selected. And that leads to a bigger question. What does Love is Blind look like in its second decade? Because the experiment itself is evolving. Early seasons had a sense of novelty. Strangers falling in love without seeing each other felt radical. Now, contestants arrive knowing the rules, knowing the fame potential, knowing the influencer opportunities that can follow. That changes the psychology of the pods. Some people genuinely want marriage, others want exposure, and producers have to constantly recalibrate. Season 10 already showed signs of this tension: hidden engagements, budget limitations, identity controversies, editing debates. The experiment is growing, but it's also becoming more complex, which means Season 11 will likely carry even higher expectations. Audiences want bigger personalities, stronger love stories, and fewer couples who feel like they're chasing social media fame. Whether Boston delivers that remains to be seen. But one thing is clear: Love is Blind isn't slowing down. If anything, the casting expansion suggests the opposite. More cities, more seasons, more experiments, more couples testing whether emotional connection can really outweigh physical attraction. And if the pattern continues? By the time viewers finish debating the Season 10 finale, Season 11 might already be on the horizon. New singles, new pods, new proposals, and probably new chaos. Because every season begins with optimism, but it rarely ends without controversy. And that unpredictability is exactly why audiences keep coming back. So the real question isn't whether Season 11 is happening, it's what kind of stories it will tell. Will Boston produce the next Cameron and Lauren? Or the next explosive reunion? Will the experiment feel fresh again? Or will the cracks in the format become impossible to ignore? Those answers are coming soon, and if the timeline is right, they might arrive faster than anyone expects. If you want the latest updates on Love is Blind Season 10, exclusive clues about Season 11, and deep breakdowns of the couples everyone is talking about, subscribe now. Because in this franchise, the moment one season ends, the next one is already beginning.